In 2013, Prince Charles secretly attended Ozzy Osbourne's concert and spoke with him. When the future King of England vanished for 6 hours, Buckingham Palace went into lockdown. What no one knew was that Prince Charles wasn't kidnapped. He was at a Black Sabbath concert. The woman's heels echoed sharply through the marble corridors of Buckingham Palace. The sound alone said it. Something had gone terribly wrong. Her name was Anne Fletcher, a senior palace aide who had served the royal household for over 3 decades. She had seen prime ministers come and go, scandals rise and vanish. But never had she seen a night like this. It was nearly 11:47 p.m., and the corridors of Buckingham Palace, usually still and orderly, buzzed with quiet panic. Servants whispered. Security officers moved in tense formation. Phones rang unanswered. In the private quarters of the royal family, a phrase kept repeating, "The Prince of Wales is missing. The future King of England and gone without notice, without escort, without protocol." Royal panic in the Queen's private office. Chaos had taken on a polished British form, calm voices masking fear. A private secretary spoke quietly into a secure line. "Your Majesty, all official vehicles are accounted for. The Prince's private car was not taken. We're tracking, but there's no signal." Silence. Then the Queen's voice, low, controlled, but with the weight of an empire behind it. "Then find him, and keep this matter away from the press." Outwardly it was an order. Inwardly it was a mother's fear. In another wing of the palace, Prince William and Prince Harry stood in disbelief. Charles, their father, was known for being meticulous, punctual, predictable to the minute. "This impossible. Maybe he went for one of his walks," Harry said, trying to make sense of it. "At midnight? Without security?" William countered. They both knew the answer. Something had pulled their father out of the palace walls tonight. Something powerful enough to make him break every royal rule. A secret long buried, to understand what led to this moment. You'd have to go back, not to Westminster, nor Balmoral, but to a small, dimly lit room in Cambridge. 1970, a young Charles, barely 21, sat on his dorm bed with a pair of bulky headphones pressed to his ears. A tiny record player spun slowly beside him, and the sound that filled the room wasn't Mozart or Bach. It was the dark, hypnotic guitar of Tony Iommi, the song Paranoid. That night something shifted inside him. The heir to the British throne, the embodiment of tradition, had stumbled into rebellion. Quietly, secretly, dangerously. He'd grown up surrounded by ceremony, silver spoons, salutes, Latin hymns. Everything about his life was designed to control sound, but this music broke control. It screamed of chaos, pain, and truth. It spoke the words he was never allowed to say. And in the middle of that soundstorm was Ozzy Osbourne, wild, raw, untamed. Everything Charles wasn't allowed to be. Every time life suffocated him, Charles would slip on those headphones and return to that forbidden world. No guards. No press, no duty. Just noise. Glorious, liberating noise. The present. 2013. London Fast. Forward to December 10th, 2013. The night was cold enough to make the Thames shimmer like black glass. London glowed in winter lights. Carolers sang in Trafalgar Square and at the O2 Arena, a different kind of choir prepared to take the stage. Black Sabbath, the gods of heavy metal, were back together for their 13 reunion tour. Tickets had sold out in minutes. People came from all over Europe, old fans, young rebels, and lifelong believers. The crowd buzzed like a living machine. But in one quiet corner of the city at Clarence House, a man stared at a small golden envelope on his desk. Special guest invitation, Black Sabbath, the O2 Arena, London. Prince Charles's fingers traced the embossed letters. He shouldn't. He couldn't. But he wanted to. He looked at his reflection in the window. The same reflection that had stared back for decades, trapped behind royal glass. Tonight he didn't want to be His Royal Highness. He wanted to be the boy who once believed freedom could fit inside a song. He opened the drawer and pulled out a pair of jeans. Then almost sheepishly a black t-shirt. He smiled. "Sorry, Bach," he muttered to himself, "but tonight belongs to Birmingham." The plan was absurdly simple. A discreet driver. No royal convoy. Just one unmarked car and one unrecognizable man in his 60s with a cap pulled low. "Sir." said his bodyguard, hesitant. Are we informing security at the venue? Charles shook his head. No, not tonight, no titles. No cameras, the guard swallowed. And if the press finds out, then they'll finally have something interesting to write about. Charles smiled. They left through a side gate rarely used except by maintenance staff. The palace walls faded behind them, replaced by the pulse of the city. For the first time in decades, Prince Charles was anonymous. Inside the arena when they arrived, the O2 was already roaring. The energy hit like a physical force, lights flashing, bass trembling through the floor, the smell of beer, leather, and electricity. Charles followed his escort to a private VIP box hidden behind tinted glass. From here he could see the entire stage: Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, the living legends, stood silhouetted in smoke and fire. The first chords of War Pigs exploded through the speakers. Charles flinched, then smiled. He'd waited 50 years to hear this live. Thousands of hands rose in the air, a synchronized ocean of fists. Charles' own hand twitched before he remembered who he was supposed to be. Then he let go. He tapped his foot, then nodded his head. And finally, he laughed. Good Lord, he whispered. They're magnificent. The crowd sang as one, voices raw and unpolished. For a man who had lived his life surrounded by polite applause, it was almost holy. The transformation as the set continued, Iron Man, NIB, paranoid, something inside him shifted. The music wasn't rebellion anymore. It was truth. It wasn't chaos, it was confession. He understood now why people worshipped Ozzy not as a rock star, but as a prophet of the misfits. And in that realization, Charles felt something he hadn't felt in years. Freedom. He turned to his guard. I must meet him. The guard blinked. Sir, you can't just... I can, Charles interrupted gently. Tonight I'm not a prince. I'm a fan. When the lights dimmed for the encore, Charles quietly left his box. The security team followed, confused and nervous. He moved down a narrow corridor filled with echoes of laughter, sweat, and amplifiers. Each step took him further from his life of protocol, and closer to a man whose songs had given him courage when nothing else had. He didn't know what he would say. He didn't even know if Ozzy would believe it. But for once in his royal life, he didn't need a plan. He just needed to be human. What happens when a prince raised in silence meets a man who taught the world to scream? Stay with us, because this night is about to change both their lives forever. Subscribe to Voices of Darkness, where legends meet truth. 17 p.m. The threshold from the bowels of the O2. The sound arrives first, low as weather, then rising like a siren. Prince Charles pauses at the service corridor entrance while a crew member rolls a flight case past his shoes with a squeak and a clack. The prince's cap sits low, his black t-shirt plain, the jeans a touch too crisp to fool a roadie, but anonymity tonight works because no one is looking for it. Sir, the security man whispers. Careful, we can still return to the box. Charles studies the painted concrete, the taped arrows, the handwritten Sabbath dressing stage left notes. That strange backstage grammar of paper and gaffer. He takes a breath and shakes his head. No, I want to hear it there. There is a place he's never been allowed to stand, not as a prince, not even as a man. He steps forward. The room of weather inside. The arena bowl sound is a pressure system. The pre-show hum, the last-minute beer runs, the endless dance of phone screens becoming constellations. The house lights dim. An intake of breath sweeps 40,000 chests at once. Then, thump, the first heartbeat of the kick drum. A simple red wash bleeds over a scrim. The silhouette of a city flickers, sirens, smoke, a siren again, and the strings of a pre-recorded intro coil into dread. When the curtain drops, the stage is geometry and fire. Risers stair-stepped like altar steps, amplifiers in monolithic rows, a drum kit built like a fortress. The logo behind them, Black Sabbath, isn't a name tonight. It's a verdict. Tony Iommi walks to his mark with the stillness of a man who's watched storms try to learn from him. Geezer Butler adjusts a strap, almost shy, then carves a test tone that vibrates Charles's ribs. Center. A figure in black moves with a child's mischief and a fox's grin. Charles knows the posture from boots-legged youth, Ozzy. The cheer is not a cheer now. It is weather. War pig sirens wail. The lights slice the air. Geezer's bass tolls like iron. Iommi's guitar drops a chord that lands in the pit of the arena like a cathedral bell. The crowd turns itself inside out. Generals gathered in their masses. Ozzy's voice is older, rougher, richer. It carries history like a scar you've chosen to keep. Charles, who has spent his life on balconies above choreographed cheers, watches an entirely different sort of ceremony unfold. This congregation stands shoulder to shoulder, not in rank but in kinship. An army pledged to a noise that refuses to kneel. On the floor, a man with a faded Bloody Sabbath shirt sings with his eyes closed. Beside him, a daughter, 10, 11, knows every word because the drive to the arena was a classroom. 2 rows over, a woman in a smart blazer cries on the chorus and laughs at herself for crying. Up in the shadows, a retired engineer claps on the wrong beat and doesn't care. The metalheads, the bankers, the baristas, the dads who chose this for joint custody weekend. The kids who arrived because TikTok convinced them to respect their elders. Tonight they are one machine. Charles feels it all press against him. The guard leans in. "Sir?" Charles lifts a palm. "I'm fine." His pulse is quick, his grin unroyal, treating people just like pawns in chess. A line that once sounded theatrical now walks straight to him. He has been the pawn and the player, the symbol and the sun. He is both crown and collar. He nods once, small, almost imperceptible, like a man acknowledging a well-aimed truth. A study in contrasts protocol teaches how to be seen. This music teaches how to disappear into the many. For the first time in years, Charles isn't performing a role. He is being performed upon. If royal life is a room of mirrors, metal is a window that opens. Iommi anchors the solo like a lighthouse. The camera crane glides. The screens make fingers 30 feet tall. Ozzy patrols the front edge with a bucket of water like a mischievous deacon, baptizing the first 2 rows in freezing sacrament. The prince laughs. The guard does not. Between songs, Ozzy stares skyward with theatrical shock. Bloody London. "You still got it." The arena proves him correct in a single noise. Into the void, a riff like an excavator. A beat that swings like a wrecking ball. The lights go ocean blue, then blackout, then strobe. The motion on the floor becomes tide. Charles thinks of the sea at Balmoral. Dark, honest, unignorable, and feels the same pull. The lyric maps worlds ending and worlds beginning. He hears not apocalypse, but choice. The past is a country with customs you no longer pass through. The future, a launch window. On screen, archival footage flickers, industrial smokestacks, teenagers with bad hair and good hope, a Birmingham bus depot at dusk. The camera finds Ozzy's face in the present. Lines, yes. But the eyes still have the prank of a boy hiding a frog in chapel. Charles recognizes that expression. He knows what it is to be told to behave and yearn for the frog. Interludes of ordinary magic. The show hums on rails. Decades of craft disguised as chaos. During quick changeovers, techs sweep picks and water bottles, swap guitars, whisper time codes. An LED strip along the drum riser counts invisible bars. To the audience, it feels spontaneous. To the crew, it's a watch. Charles admires this. Royal pageantry knows the trick. Rehearse the life out of a thing to give it life on the day. A text vibrates the guard's pocket. He glances. Palace. Status? He types a careful lie that is mostly a truth. In transit, will update. He looks at the prince, who looks at the stage, who looks like a man who has misplaced 40 years and found them again under a speaker. NIB, Geezer steps up. His bass solo is a sermon without vowels. The crowd hushes into a listen that feels respectful, not stern. Then the riff. Then the smile on thousands of faces. Recognition. Charles feels the floor flex. A man near him lifts his son onto his shoulders. The little boy, headphones oversized, punches the air with marshmallow fists. The camera finds him. The big screen turns him into a mascot of future loyalty. The arena cheers louder for that small, ridiculous, beautiful gesture than for any laser. Beside the prince, the security man mutters, half to himself, "It's wholesome." He sounds betrayed by the word. Charles leans closer without looking away from the stage. It's communal. Sound is permission in palaces, silence can be a weapon. In arenas, noise is permission. Permission to grieve without specifying the cause. Permission to age without apologizing for being there in the first place. Permission to worship without doctrine. Ozzy cups both hands to his ears like a magician daring the rabbit to manifest. The arena understands the cue and detonates. He shrugs, mock modest, then laughs at his own trick. The laugh travels the air and lands everywhere at once. During the bridge, the lights go Starfield. For 3 measures, 40,000 people hum the motif before the band does. Yomi chases them into it. You can see him grin. He's been doing this for half a century, and still gets surprised by a room that writes back. Charles touches the glass of the VIP box absent-mindedly, then withdraws his hand as if he's caught himself smudging a museum piece. He steps away from the barrier until the glass no longer frames the show. He wants nothing between. Snowblind. The private archive memory isn't linear tonight. When the first chords of Snowblind unfurl, he is 21, he is 50, he is 65. A young man in a drafty room at Cambridge with headphones stolen from a reel-to-reel deck. A middle-aged father stuck between old expectations and new tabloids. An older man who has been praised and mocked for talking to plants because he does not know how else to explain his love for the living. He thinks, if the press could see me now. He thinks if my younger self could see me now. He thinks nothing for 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and that is the point. A crowd of small stories. The cameras coast the audience. A patch-covered denim vest that tells a life story in thread. A couple on a first date, stiff at first, wooses into laughter when a drunk man 2 rows down proposes to the guitarist using a paper plate sign. A woman reads the set list on a fan forum live, whispering predictions with the zeal of a bookmaker. A granddad in a blazer stands arms folded, nodding once each chorus as if signing a ledger. The camera returns to the stage. Ozzy claps like a church kid dared to misbehave in choosing yes. The Prince catalogs not faces but belonging. The monarchy measures unity numerically. Jubilee crowds, line lengths, flag counts. This unity is louder but not less loyal. To what? Not a person. A promise you are allowed to be this version of yourself here. The offer halfway through the set, a laminated pass finds its way into the guard's hand. A runner, breathless, from management if you want it. He doesn't say whom he recognized. He doesn't need to. The guard flicks his eyes to the prince. Charles's mouth says nothing. His eyebrows say yes. The runner nods like a spy and vanishes back into the canals between worlds. Backstage access, the guard murmurs. After this, Charles answers, meaning not yet. He is not done being a face in the dark. The sermon of Iron Man. That riff doesn't start. It arrives. It is the national anthem of a country that exists whenever a person decides it does. The big screen turns into a slow-motion comic panel, a steel-jawed figure walking through decades of posters. Ozzy conducts the sing-along with both hands, beating time like a choir master who forgot the cathedral and remembered the choir. I'm Iron Man. 40,000 voices bellow the sentence a therapist might call an affirmation, and a philosopher might call a paradox. Charles mouths the words and stops himself half a syllable in, embarrassed by the silliness, then unimpressed by his embarrassment, and finishes the line with a shrug. The guard pretends not to notice. This is loyalty. The last chorus hits like a street festival. The lights explode into white, then die into a moody violet as the band holds the final note just long enough to make the room plead, then cuts it. The silence that follows is sweet and brief. The quiet between Ozzy paces. We good, London? The answer is an avalanche. He points to someone in the pit. You with the... Yes, that hair. Never change. He cackles at his own kindness, waves in 10 directions at once, and then, without warning, stands still. For 3 seconds, he lets the noise go unled. It holds on its own, like a bird learning it can fly without the hand. From the box, Charles studies that stillness. He recognizes it, the professional's pause. A speech's comma, a conductor's breath, a gardener's look before the first cut. God is dead? New song, old ache. The visuals turn into a chapel of screens. Stained glass made of pixels, saints replaced by guitars and bees and smokestacks and children. The question in the chorus is not blasphemy, but biography. It is not, does God exist? But what do we worship when we forget ourselves? Charles feels the line snag on his coat somewhere inside. He has prayed in rooms painted by centuries. He has also spoken to trees. He has been scolded for both. He smiles at the absurd dignity of that. On the last refrain, Ozzy holds the dead half a beat too long. The band lands under him like a net. That's craft. That's family. The decision he has seen enough to have seen nothing. That is, the show has turned him into an appetite. He leans toward the guard. After the next one. The guard nods, fingers already counting a route through gates, past marshals. Down a stair he noticed on the way in because noticing stairs is his religion. Paranoid. You don't announce it. You detonate it. The opening chords hit like old fireworks rediscovered in a drawer. The arena doesn't wait for permission. The song is 2 minutes and change of democracy. On the second verse, a camera sweeps past the VIP boxes. In the playback, the prince is just another shape. He likes it that way. He taps his foot, then laughs at himself for loving that cliché enough to do it anyway. The last chorus does not end so much as decide it has won. Confetti cannons do not fire. Sabbath doesn't do confetti. But the lights simulate that rush. A shimmer of white static, then a blackout that feels like a wink. The room roars the way a story does when it knows it will be told again. The Walk the House lights bloom to half. The crowd chants for more even knowing there is no more. The guard touches his earpiece, then gestures. The prince follows through a door marked crew only, and down a corridor that smells like victory and disinfectant. Here, the languages of two worlds meet. Flight cases stenciled with Birmingham and Tokyo, signs pointing to hospitality and VIP holding, a laminated pass that functions as a passport. They pass a wall with photos. Sabbath in 1970, 1980, 1998, 2013. Charles pauses at the earliest one. 4 boys who look like trouble and promise in equal measure. Sir? The guard prompts softly. He tears himself away like a man leaving a museum gift shop empty-handed on purpose. The backline cathedral stage left. It's quieter and louder at once. Quieter because the crowd is now a muffled sea behind curtains. Louder because everything else is close. The hiss of a fog machine, a tech testing a snare, the clack of a Telecaster switch, laughter from a pocket of crew. Someone recognizes the runner who recognized the guard. A head nod. The smallest of doors opens. Inside, a dressing room corridor dressed in black pipe and drape. Hand-drawn signage on A4 printer paper. Tony, Ozzy, geezer with arrows. Plastic tubs of ice. A catering tray of triangles that used to be sandwiches. A bouquet that looks like it survived the gig better than expected. Charles's heart does a small, silly thing he hasn't felt since youth. A skip. A flutter, call it what it is, fanhood. He turns to the guard, whose job tonight is to predict disasters before they apply for credentials. The guard's face is calm, but his eyes do math. Only 5 minutes, he suggests. We'll take whatever is offered, Charles answers. It is the most unroyal, most royal sentence he speaks all night. 2 worlds. 1 door at the end of the corridor. A door with a white star. Black Sharpie over it reading Ozzy in the unsure handwriting of a legend who never needed cursive. Voices inside. Laughter. A crash that is either a bottle cap or a cymbal top or a joke landing. The runner raises a knuckle to knock, hesitates, and turns. Ready? Ready is the wrong word. You aren't ready to meet the person whose noise carried you across 4 decades. You are willing. He is. The runner knocks. A beat. A voice. Familiar even when filtered by wood and distance, bleeds through the door. Yeah, come in. The handle turns. The door opens. Light spills. And for the first time tonight, the prince forgets he is a prince at all. Before we head into the dressing room for the moment no one ever imagined, hit subscribe to Voices of Darkness and share this with a friend who believes music can cross any border. Even the walls of a palace, Ozzy turns. A towel around his neck, eyes still bright with stage light. Sharon is mid-sentence laughing about a missed cue. Then she freezes. Charles steps inside, cap removed, face illuminated by the dressing room fluorescence. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Ozzy squints. Bloody hell. You're Prince Charles, aren't you? The guard stiffens, ready to intercept the confusion, but the prince lifts a hand, calm. Yes, Mr. Osbourne. Just Charles tonight, if you don't mind. Sharon blinks, then bursts into delighted disbelief. Charles? As in the Charles. You came to see this madman? He smiles. I've been listening to this madman since 1970. Laughter breaks the spell. The impossible meeting becomes merely improbable, and improbable feels human. Tea among titans. The dressing room smells of sweat, aftershave, and tea steeping on a side table. A roadie stumbles in, realizes who's sitting there, and vanishes like a ghost. Ozzy flustered gestures at the couch. Please, your height, Charles. Mind the cables. Charles sits, smoothing his jeans as if they were royal trousers. A splendid performance. I believe my ears are still ringing. That's the idea. Ozzy grins. Keeps the demons out, Sharon snorts. Keeps the royalties coming, more like. Charles laughs, properly unguarded. The guard outside exhales in relief. He's never heard that sound in service. Confessions over china cups when the mugs are poured. Proper English tea. Milk first. No sugar. Charles studies the posters on the wall. Birmingham, 1970. You were barely older than my sons are now. Skinny kids with big amps, Ozzy says. Didn't know what we were doing. Still don't. You knew, Charles counters. You knew what people needed to hear. I used to listen in secret, on a small record player at Cambridge. You made noise sound like truth. The room goes quiet. Sharon sets her mug down. That's the nicest thing anyone said to him in years. Ozzy's eyes soften. You mean it? A prince listening to Sabbath? Charles nods. When duty felt like a chain, your music was a key. For a long moment, the Prince of Wales and the Prince of Darkness simply sit, steam rising between them like a truce. Shared burdens, Ozzy leans back. You ever get tired of being what they expect? Every day, Charles answers without hesitation. But expectation is a cage built from love. It's hard to resent the bars when they're polished so well. Ozzy whistles. That's deep, mate. Should have been a lyric. Coming from you, that's a compliment of royal value. They laugh again, louder this time. Sharon watches them, two men from opposite planets finding gravity between them. She finally says, You know, you both talk about duty like it's a disease. Maybe it's just another form of love. Ozzy grins. There she goes again. Makes sense right when I was going to sound profound. The song that broke the silence. Charles clears his throat. There's one song of yours that stayed with me. Changes. I played it the day my marriage ended. And again when my grandson was born. Ozzy looks down at his hands. Wrote that for my dad. Never knew it'd help other people say goodbye to things they love. It helped me say hello to myself. Charles says softly. Silence again. But now it's sacred, not awkward. Two men bound by a song about time they can't control. Freedom recognizes freedom. Ozzy breaks it with a grin. You know, mate, we ain't that different. You wear a crown, I wear eyeliner, but we both put on a show so people feel safe in their stories. Charles chuckles. And both our shows go terribly wrong if someone forgets the lyrics. Too right. Sharon wipes a tear, laughing. You two should go on tour together. Call it Crown and Chaos, or Riffs and Ribbons, Charles offers. They laugh until it hurts, until the titles blur into nonsense and truth. The gifts. When the guard quietly signals that time is up, Ozzy stands, rummages through a bag, and pulls out a CD case, 13 signed in silver. Take it, special pressing. Play it after one of those palace meetings. Charles accepts it like a relic. I might even slip it into the Christmas playlist. Bloody brilliant, Ozzy laughs. Then he reaches into his pocket again and hands over a black wristband, the logo worn nearly smooth. Had it all tour. Keeps me grounded. You should have it, Charles hesitates. Mr. Osbourne, I can't possibly. You can. 'Cause we both know what it feels like to carry the weight of a world and still want to headbang once in a while. Charles laughs, eyes bright. He takes the band and slips it into his pocket. Perhaps not for state dinners, but on quiet nights. Yes, the farewell. The guard nods again. It's time. Charles rises. Ozzy, Sharon, thank you for your kindness, and for reminding me that freedom has many sounds. Ozzy bows, half serious, half mocking. Your Majesty, sorry, your not Majesty, honors all ours. Charles offers his hand. Ozzy takes it. The handshake lasts long enough to be a promise. As he turns to leave, Charles looks back. You know, they call you the Prince of Darkness. Perhaps our worlds aren't so far apart. Ozzy grins. Maybe we're all princes, mate. Just different kingdoms. Charles smiles. Then long live the music. He steps into the corridor, the door closing softly behind him. Inside, Sharon whispers, Did that actually happen? Ozzy nods, eyes wide. Yeah. And for once in me life, I ain't gonna forget a bloody thing. In a backstage room that smelled of sweat and tea, a royal found freedom and a rock star found respect. Two men, two crowns, one made of gold, the other of guitar strings. The palace regained its silence, but something inside the prince would never be quiet again. London slept under a thin fog when the black sedan rolled through the gates of Buckingham Palace. The headlights dimmed to nothing. Protocol demanded discretion. Charles sat in the back seat, Head leaned against the window, watching the mist swirl through the lamps. The city's noise was gone, replaced by the still pulse of tires on gravel. His bodyguard drove without a word, unsure if this night would ever be spoken of again. At the entrance, a footman waited, one of those perfectly composed servants who never allowed curiosity to show on their faces. But tonight even he faltered. The future king stepped out not in tailored wool but in jeans and a black t-shirt, hair mussed from wind and sound. "Good evening, sir," the footman managed. Charles smiled faintly. "Good morning, I think." He walked inside. The marble echoed beneath his shoes like a reminder of the life he had returned to. The private chamber. He reached his private suite, closed the door, and exhaled. The silence was immense, the kind of silence that judges you. Charles removed his jacket, set the signed 13 CD on his desk, and slowly pulled the black wristband from his pocket. He turned it over in his palm. The worn logo caught the lamplight. He could still hear the crowd's roar in his bones, still feel Ozzy's laugh in the air. He placed the wristband beside his watch, staring at the two side by side, one a symbol of obligation, the other of rebellion. For the first time, they didn't feel like opposites. A knock at the door, a soft knock, broke his thought. It was his private secretary, gray-suited, eyes red from an all-night search. "Sir, forgive me, but Her Majesty has been most concerned. May I inform her of your safe return?" "Yes, of course," Charles said, his voice calm. "And please tell her I was listening to music." "Music, sir?" "Very loud music," Charles replied with a smile that made the man blink. Meanwhile, the tour bus across town, the Sabbath convoy rolled down the M4, city lights shrinking behind them. Inside, the band lounged in the post-show calm that feels like a storm's eye. Sharon sat by the window scrolling through messages. "Front page of tomorrow's tabloids will be mad," she murmured. Ozzy looked up from his tea. "They don't know, do they?" "Not yet, but someone saw a familiar face near the VIP box." She showed him her phone, a blurry photo, grainy but unmistakable, a silhouette in royal profile. Ozzy grinned. Let him guess. The truth's better as a rumor. He looked out the window. "You know, Sharon, he talked like he actually heard us, not just the noise. The meaning, that's rare," she said softly. "Bloody miracle, more like," Ozzy added. They rode in silence for a while, London giving way to countryside. The guitarist snored. The drummer texted his kids. Ozzy hummed a line from Changes, off-key and beautiful. Back at the palace, morning light filtered through Buckingham's tall windows. The news cycle churned oblivious. The royal calendar remained unchanged. Briefings, charity meetings, photographs. Charles went through it all, but something inside him was different. His smile had loosened, his movements less rehearsed. During a public appearance at a youth arts program, a student asked timidly, "Sir, do you listen to modern music?" The question might once have drawn a polite chuckle. Instead, he said, "Sometimes the best way to understand your country is to listen to the noise it makes." The student blinked, unsure if it was poetry or confession. Whispers in the halls by afternoon. Quiet whispers spread among palace aides. A roadie's tweet had leaked. "Swear I saw Prince Charles backstage at Sabbath, unreal." The tabloids feasted. "Royal metalhead, future king of noise." Buckingham issued a careful statement. The prince attended the concert in a private capacity. No official comment will be made. It wasn't a denial. It was an admission wrapped in manners, and the public loved it. The internet dubbed him the Metal Majesty. Memes exploded, Charles in sunglasses holding a mic headbanging beside Ozzy. Privately, the palace bristled. Publicly, the country laughed, kindly for once. Two reflections in Buckingham. That evening, Charles walked through the palace gardens, frost glinting on the hedges. He hummed softly, the chorus of war pigs blending into Changes. For the first time in years, the melody fit his own rhythm. He thought of Ozzy's words. Maybe we're all princes. Just different kingdoms. He looked up at the winter stars, distant and indifferent. Different kingdoms indeed, he whispered. On the road in the back of the bus, Ozzy scrolled through his phone, stopping on a photo taken discreetly by Sharon, him shaking hands with Charles, both mid-laughter. He zoomed in on the faces. Two men who'd spent their lives being misunderstood, one by tabloids, one by history. He sent the photo to Sharon's email and said, "Keep that safe. Someday when they ask if royalties ever had soul, we'll have proof." A letter never sent weeks later. In a quiet study smelling faintly of ink and dust, Charles sat at his desk and wrote a letter on heavy cream paper. "Dear Mr. Osbourne, our conversation reminded me that titles, much like guitars, are only as powerful as the hearts that hold them. Thank you for reminding me that freedom doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears a wristband. Yours sincerely, Charles." He sealed it, addressed it, and hesitated. Then instead of sending it, he placed it inside the same drawer where the wristband lay. Some truths didn't need postage. They just needed presence. Time's echo months passed. The rumor faded. The palace remained the palace. Black Sabbath continued their tour, then retired once again, leaving the world a little quieter. But sometimes, when the palace staff walked past Charles's study late at night, they heard faint music, not the Baroque strains of Handel or Vivaldi, but something heavier, slower, alive. And if you listened closely, you might have heard a royal humming along. In the end, nothing leaked except the truth, that even the crown bends its head to music when the night is honest enough. The prince returned to his duty, but not unchanged, and somewhere on a tour bus, a rocker carried the memory of a handshake that mattered.